Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Reckoning of Roku chapter analysis video. This one's going to be for chapter 11, which is called A Lovely Meandering Tour. So just before we start, again, YouTube channel membership is enabled if you would like to help support the channel. Otherwise, let's jump in here. So we're back with Roku and Gyatso, and we basically get the chapter of them figuring out, like, okay, we haven't been able to immediately find the island. They're flying around, camping out for a few days, like looking around for it. And we end with them finally coming across the fog-shrouded island. But there's a lot of interesting conversations that happen here because effectively this is the first kind of time where they're getting extended periods of time talking to each other, and so the friendship is beginning to develop here. So that's most of what we're doing in this chapter is, you know, Roku and Gyatso getting to know each other a little bit kind of closer, basically. So we immediately jump in with the idea that, yeah, Roku, unlike what he said to Taemin, doesn't actually know how to properly read the map, and they haven't found the island yet. But he thinks this current attempt is going to actually get them to the island. Gyatso has been a bit frustrated by this, not thinking that like Roku's particularly impressive, and they kind of begin to sort of insult each other a little bit here. Gyatso finishes shaving his head once again and is like, hey Roku, do you want to use this? And Roku's like, with his facial hair is coming in, like, no thanks, I'm letting it grow in. No, I'm talking about your head. And Roku's like, no, I'm not shaving my head, suit yourself. Whale Tail Island gets dropped here, with the idea being that I guess they're using that as a thing on the map of like, okay, we're here, Whale Tail Island's over there, we need to go this way to get to the island. I think that's the idea, that this should get them there finally. Gyatso's kind of like, I have no idea what that map says, but what about we go surf on the elephant kois and then go back to the temple and like end this now, basically. But Roku says, no, we're so close, we need to do this. Plus, your airbending isn't fixed yet. Do you not like want to go on this mission and maybe try and get it back? Gyatso is like, maybe, but I'm not sure spending several more days just going randomly over the open seas is going to help. And Lola basically agrees with that as well. Again, Lola is Gyatso's sky bison who they're flying on, and she's getting a bit frustrated about this as well. And so they bring up the idea of, do you think we're going to get in a lot of trouble for this? Sister Disha is not going to be happy about this. And just on the pronunciation of that character's name, I have now listened to some of the audiobook. The pronunciation is Disha, rather than I've been saying Daisha up to now. But it's Disha. So we'll go with that from here on out. So Roku's happy to take the risk. But Gyatso's like, but what about me? I think my punishment could be even worse, because banishment is an option for air nomads who break the rules. And Roku, of course, remembers the same thing we as fans remember, which is that, oh yeah, Yang Chen was banished from the Northern Air Temple. That's something that can't happen. But Roku points out, but that's only for a serious offense. And Gyatso's like, I don't think you're aware of what we're doing here. You mean like helping the Avatar disobey his airbending master by giving him a ride to some island where he makes a bunch of mistakes and plunges the Fire Nation and Earth Kingdom into war? And Roku's like, I would have left even without you. Sure, and I'm not going to start a war. It's nice that you think that. But Roku basically just says, one more day. If we don't find it, we can return, and I will take all the blame. I'll say I forced you to come with me. Let's do that. And Gyatso agrees to this. So they take a break. That night they basically camp out on a random beach, and Roku wakes up because he's been kind of tossing and turning. The sense of failure is coming over him. And as he gets up, he realizes that Gyatso's already up as well. Gyatso's walked out onto the beach to practice, to try and do airbending. And so Roku kind of sneaks up and kind of spies on Gyatso doing airbending forms. And of course, he has problems. So he does a whole sequence of airbending forms. It's amazing. It's graceful. He's so fast. He's with the wind itself. But he's not producing a lot of airbending. It is described here that there are a fraction of the time there are blasts of air that come out as he does the form here, but it's not consistent. And it says here the gusts are sputtering and weak, and there's really not too much of a sense of control. As it goes on, he gets angrier, the motions get sloppier, and less airbending begins to come out. And so he gets upset at this, and this is where Roku goes over and talks to him, and he really, this is where like you probably have the true connection of it, of just like realizing, oh yeah, like not having your bending, being consistent, I get that. And he comes over to Gyatso and says, it'll come back to you. I don't know if it will. And this is where Roku like tries to connect with Gyatso and says, I lost someone very close to me a few years ago. It messed me up for a long time, but I found a way through it. You'll do the same. Who did you lose? My brother. We were twins. And Gyatso says, I'm sorry, I lost my sister last year. Now, keep in mind, it's an air nomad we're talking about here. I don't believe over the course of the entire book they ever clarified that what they mean by that is like a literal biological sister. So treat that as being the same as the Yang Chen, Jetson, and just air nomad in general, sister type thing. This is basically Gyatso's very, 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 very close friend, who is so close he considers her an actual sister. That idea. I lost my sister last year. And this is where Roku makes the connection of like, this is why Sister Disha is trying to kind of connect us together, because she knows about the recent loss we have both kind of had in our lives, and that we can maybe help each other get through this, or at the very least, Roku can help Gyatso get through this. And it's noted here like, you lost your sister. Is that when you started having problems with your airbending? And Gyatso nods and says yes. Interesting sequence here. Roku says, do you want to talk about it? Not really. Want to talk about your brother? Not really. And they just have a sad laugh together about this. It's not time to fully go into the details of this. It's a bit too early just yet. But Gyatso does say, you found a way through it? How? A good friend, Sozin. And Gyatso's like, what's the Prince of the Fire Nation really like? And then Roku tells us this story about this moment when they were younger. It says 7 or 8. They were all playing together in the royal spa. So this is Roku, Yasu, and Sozin all together. And basically, Yasu accidentally splashes this big muscular guy who was much older than them. And he's getting annoyed at them. He's going to go over. It looks like he's about to body slam, basically, Yasu. And so Roku was not able to do anything. He froze. But Sozin got straight up and boom, fire punch straight to the crotch. I don't think they describe it as like it's fire bending, but like he punched him in the crotch is the idea here. And it's like he threatened him as well and was like, that's Sozin. He stood up for us that day. And so yeah, he says, what was your brother's name? Yasu. And then what was your sister's name? My sister's name was Yama. So they kind of note the comparison here of like, oh, they share a syllable. Like there's an interesting kind of connection there in a way. So it's Y-A-S-U, Yasu, and then it's Y-A-M-A, Yama. So yeah, they share a syllable. And we just end this sequence and we cut to the next scene with, do you really believe we're actually going to find it? I do. Then let's keep looking. So we cut to the next scene and they're on Lola again. They're actually like flying through the air this time. And Roku notes, hey, why is Air Nomad food so bland? And he's eating this cracker basically, and he's like, this is really plain. And Gyatso's like, those are the Sky Bison biscuits, and he gives them to Lola, and Roku's like, oh. But anyway, even so, I've been eating your food for months. Have the air nomads ever come across spices in all of their travels? Gyatso counters with, you talk about our food, but your people are like morally backwards. What do you mean by that? Yeah, you're like your monarchy. You really think a single person calling all the shots is a good idea? And have you ever had a female leader? Do you even have a term for that? Fire madam, fire mistress, fire lady. At least, and then Roku counters with, at least we don't segregate our major cities by gender. And Gyatso's like, well, there are good reasons air nuns and air monks study and train apart. And besides, we're not just flexible when it comes to our airbending. Air nomads can move temples if their understanding of their own gender shifts. And Roku's like, oh, interesting, okay. But then he gets to more, I suppose, more personal with Gyatso. I'll never understand your whole neutrality stance. And this is a bit of an interesting one where, like, clearly this is referencing, like this is an air nomad thing, I get, to a certain degree, but this is also specifically Gyatso, because if you read Gyatso's RPG entry, it is effectively about the idea that he is this, like, neutral who's very willing to listen to kind of all sides of an argument. And Roku points out, don't you get that by doing nothing is doing, don't you get that doing nothing is doing something? Avatar Kyoshi said that standing idly by while injustice occurs allows that injustice to continue, that we have to kind of do something. Kind of the Yang Chen approach, effectively, of don't just wait for something to happen and then deal with it, try and deal with it beforehand. It's the parry the sword rather than heal the wound type situation as well. That actually might have been a slightly better connection to perhaps make, but anyway. So then we get a very interesting one, and this actually plays an important role in the book, as we'll kind of connect it together. Gyatso says, there wouldn't be so much fighting if everyone were pacifists like us. My sister always thought we should go abroad to spread our teachings. And that will come back, that little line there. Roku shook his head. You'll never convince Fire Nationals to give up Komodo kebabs. And then Gyatso gets on this kind of complete, like, humorous side plot here, where he's like, well, what about all the Fire Nation silly slang? And Roku's like, what are you talking about? Are you going to pretend that you don't greet your countrymen with a hearty flamey-o, Hotman? Nobody says that. And Gyatso is just like, not yet, but give me some time. And Roku's like, huh? You're going to create new Fire Nation slang and somehow get it to spread across the archipelago as a joke? And Gyatso says, never underestimate my dedication. So if you take this all the way through the franchise, the idea here is that Gyatso invented Flamey-o Hotman. Did his best, I guess, on his own to spread it around a little bit. And I guess the idea is that he succeeded. And this is why Kuzan knows this and has told Aang about it, I guess. And then because Aang is, I suppose, so similar to Gyatso, he's just like, oh yeah, this is cool, I go ahead with this. And Gyatso hasn't told him otherwise. There's a few funny, like, connections with this whole idea, but because like he's the origin of it, I guess. And you would assume that when Aang visited the Fire Nation, he maybe went to places that, like, Gyatso had been to before. So, you know, you see where the idea is coming from, I guess. So, fun little detail there. And then they quickly realize, oh, there's a cloud up ahead. No, that's a whole giant thing of grey-white mist, like, hanging over the middle of the ocean. It looks like unnaturally fixed in the same area. And then Roku looks at the map and realizes, oh, no, that's it. That's it right there. We have found it. And then the title drop happens right at the end of, like, Gyatso says, Lola and I thank you for a lovely meandering tour of the South Sea. You're very welcome. And so the idea is, okay, we're here. We're finally going to get them arriving on the island because they have at last found it on Lola the Sky Bison. But overall, we've done some interesting stuff here, I think, in terms of just addressing that, like, okay, it was a bit of a struggle for them to find this place. There's a bit of a discussion about will they be punished or not, and Gyatso worried about maybe being banished. Then getting into the whole idea of Gyatso and how impactful, how emotional the loss of his bending is to him. But the idea that here is the inherent connection between the two. Why Disha is trying to connect them together. They both have experienced a loss. Roku's twin brother and Gyatso's sister, Yasu and Yama. And so the question for both of them is what actually happened in the past? Why is Gyatso lost his bending, basically, because of the loss of Yama? How was he involved? Similarly with Roku, what did he go through with whatever happened to Yasu? We know it's related to, like, the ocean, the water to a certain degree, but we don't know exactly what happened. And then the back and forth, mention, Sozin helped me through it. Like, a friend is important to help you through these things. And what's happening here? The Roku-Gyatso friendship. So the idea is Gyatso needs a friend, Roku can be that, and with Sozin gone, or not around Roku anymore, Roku also needs a friend, and that's Gyatso. And you can see the point that's being made here, of course, within the story. And then the very fun back and forth about the culture clash between Fire Nation and Air Nomads that doesn't get too aggressive here, but it's just like, hey, what's up with that? Hey, no, what's up with that? And I think it's very fun between these two characters here who are relatively young, but they do get on like pretty well. Good stuff here, very character-driven chapter. That definitely is like, okay, yeah, this relationship is going to be pretty good, I think, to see over the course of the chapters. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this chapter. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.